The infighting has always been bad, right? But I think like this new emergence of Palestine and Israel has really just completely shaken up the whole party, because it's almost as if you can be the furthest left person you've ever met. You could say, I don't want borders, ACAB, all the things, right? But if you say, I don't have a position on Palestine and Israel, then you are the enemy, right?
You're canceled.
And this is part of the issue, is that we are finding reasons to shrink our tent. And in a time where we should be expanding.
That's bullshit, by the way. That's bullshit. You are fucking shrinking the tent. You are shrinking the tent. There are more people that are pro-Palestine than pro-Israel right now, all around. And when you don't take a stance against one of the most consequential issues of our time, it's clear, black and white, by the way, is genocide, right? You got a majority of the American population even recognizing that it's genocide, and you won't take a stance on it. You are the one who's making the tent smaller, because people look at that and go, why the fuck should I trust you? You can't even say that this is a genocide and we have to put an end to it, even from a partisan perspective. It doesn't make any sense. This is an objectively, this is not only a moral stance that you could take, but it's also now objectively a popular stance that you can take. So when you don't take a stance on this issue, all you're doing is telling people that you are bought and paid for. All you're telling people is that you are just like everybody else in mainstream news. You're just like everybody else in politics, refusing to actually listen to the cries coming from the base of support. You are refusing to listen to the demands, the reasonable and just demands that people are making that want to vote for the Democrats, that still feel like the Democrats are supposed to be the counterbalance against growing fascism around the world.
Our tent. This is where my personal frustration comes in, because I'm like, listen, we can all have our own beliefs and that's fine. The infighting.
Like, I think this was immoral to say even in December 2023, because it was obvious what Israel was doing, right? But the very fact that you're still saying it now, when the issue has swung dramatically in the opposite direction, in the direction of the truth, is insane. You are lying to yourself and lying to the people that are watching that podcast in order to continue justifying getting money from the Democratic Party, who doesn't want you to say those things, who doesn't want you to take an active stance on these things. Yeah. Poll from October 2023. It's actually not surprising. I posted this on IG on October 2023 because support for cutting off weapons to Israel was already a 50-50 issue. 53% of Democrats were already saying that we should not send weapons and supplies to Israel on October 19th, 2023, 2 weeks after. This is a fucking huge problem. This is emblematic of the problem with them messaging, okay? They are too afraid to take a stance on anything. They're too afraid to lead. Or rather, when they do want to actively lead and change the attitude of the base, they only do so in the direction of moving right. The base could be like, hey, we want fucking healthcare. What are you doing? And they'll be like, no, you can't have it. And you should stop asking us that. And it's actually bad and wrong to demand free healthcare. What the fuck do you want? When it comes to immigration, there'll be people in the base that are like, what are you doing? Immigrants are our neighbors. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. They're a part of our communities. Please stop saying immigrants are fucking scary. Republicans are saying immigrants are rapist monsters. And then if you turn around and say, no, immigrants are actually a national security threat, the only time where you're unafraid to lead, I guess, is when you're trying to move your base more into the right wing. And if you do that, then of course you're going to fucking lose elections to the right. And they're going to keep going more far right. There has never been a time in American history where the Democrats have been able to successfully outflank the Republican Party in contemporary American society. There's never been a moment where the Democrats have been able to successfully outflank the Republicans on right-wing sentiment. They do not own patriotism. They do not own the military. They do not own being the pro-war party. And they shouldn't, by the way, regardless. And they do not own cutting the welfare state, no matter how hard they gut it themselves. Okay? I have repeated this a million times over in my last 12 years of being a fucking professional political commentator. And in that process, conditions have only gotten worse. And the Democrats have become even more feckless and even more right-wing in the process. And they just keep fucking losing. And they keep losing to an increasingly worse, increasingly more violent, increasingly more belligerent right-wing. And they just keep going, I don't know how this happened. I guess it's because of the left. My mentality is there are blue no matter who voters, but they will always vote blue. They are not going to, if someone is voting for Joe Biden, if someone is willing to vote for Kamala Harris, they're not going to fucking not vote for Bernie Sanders. What are you, stupid? But there are plenty of other people that aren't even Democrat voters that don't consider themselves to be Democrats. And I'm not meaning like they're radical leftists or whatever, because there are certainly radical leftists or whatever that would vote for the Democrats if it was like a more radical candidate. But there are a lot of people who just simply don't vote that could be captivated into voting if the Democrats actually abided by at least like Bernie Sanders' message. Okay? And the blue no matter who guys are going to come along anyway, because they're already harm reduction voters. This is true. I'm a field lead for Zoran and meta voter who doesn't like Zoran's policies, but will vote for him because he's the Dem. Exactly. It's actually not surprising. I posted this in IG on October 2023 because support for cut-off weapons to Israel was already a 50-50 issue, and anyone with eyes could see what was about to happen. What is new in 2025 is that the elite opinion has now shifted against Israel. Yeah. Just a remarkable shift on military aid to Israel, by the way. Do you support or oppose the United States sending more military aid to Israel for their efforts in the war with Hamas? August 27th, 2025, yesterday, opposition is at 60%. 60% of those polled say they oppose the United States sending more military aid to Israel for their efforts in the war with Hamas. What you're implying is dangerous, let me tell you. What are we doing? If you're still not talking about this, you must be getting paid to not talk about this. And it turns out that was the point. Maybe you genuinely, organically also don't want to talk about it. And the pay doesn't hurt on top of that, but it doesn't matter. Do you guys understand? Not only do I have an issue with like political commentators getting paid, right, to do like certain kind of messaging pushes, okay? Not only do I take issue with that in general, because like obviously that spells that like you're buyable, right? They can just like buy you. And I don't think you're independent at that point. Or if you're going to do that, you could just be like, this is something that I agree with already. And they were willing to give me money. And that's why I'm doing it. Right? Like that's, I guess like the most honest way to go about it. Right? But it's also a major failure in general for the Democrats. Like it literally fails to do the job. If the Democrats' goal here is to try and bring more people to their side at a time when there should be unprecedented support for the opposition party, then you have to speak on certain issues that the party itself is not choosing to speak on. Otherwise, you are going to lose the messaging war to grifters on the right who will dominate the field. That is precisely the reason why Nick Fuentes is dominating the field right now. Okay? He is seen as an earnestly anti-Israel person on the media side, on the independent media side. Tucker Carlson is seen as an earnestly anti-Israel person on also the independent media side. And he's a very important voice in the right-wing movement. When liberal Democrats who are getting paid by the Democratic Party are refusing to speak on these atrocities, they are literally leaving this entire realm of media. They're leaving a massive void in the ecosystem here to unironically allow right-wing grifters to fucking take advantage of. The Democrats aren't trying to bring more people in and expand their base. They're riding on Trump being fascist and unpalatable for the midterms. Their approach has been, we don't have to change anything and sit on their hands. Yeah, and that's a devastating prospect. And the real reason why that's a devastating prospect is because they are deeply and unimaginably unpopular right now. And no one is seemingly looking at why they're so unpopular when they should be organically popular because of how unpopular the Trump administration is. But because they're not doing anything, people just look at them and go, you guys are fucking losers. You're not doing shit. And under the duopoly structure, if people fucking despise the Republican Party for its violence and its reactionary policies and its and the resentment that they breed towards the Republicans, and then they have no avenue to actually vote for a party that is like going to actively combat them, actively present hurdles with the Democrats. They're just not going to vote. They're just going to get angry and they're not going to vote. That is precisely what happened this last election. I'm good with this. I did my research on it and I don't see an issue. The left has to catch up to the far right. They've been killing it, like you said, especially on social media. Let's go. Okay, if the left is losing to the fucking far right, you need to understand there's a key reason for it. And that's not just because of moneyed interest. That's not just because like money dominates this fucking field. That's one of the reasons. But the other reason is because the right is in tune with like organically developing resentment movements that they immediately fold back into the Republican Party. Whereas the left, or not the left, but like liberal content creators and the Democrats actively are more invested in like getting their base to just believe in harm reduction narratives when that has been a demonstrable failure. Putting the same harm reduction narratives in front of more people over and over again is not obviously going to fucking allow you to secure a victory here. It failed last election cycle. This is worse than Trump won, because at least in Trump won, there was a movement towards more progressive politicians and more progressive politics that the establishment Dems basically gave way to. They didn't actively fucking try to shank the left flank. They realized that the Trump issue was so pervasive and so scary that they actively stood by as the left grew, and you know, they listened to the demands being made by the base. So much so that they even did those messaging bills about Medicare for all. That's the reason why Kamala Harris ran as a pro Medicare for all candidate in the primaries after losing, of course. But there was a reason why so many of the Democrats that were on that stage were either actively trying to fight back against Medicare for all, or were just straight up saying that they're pro Medicare for all. If you truly care about fighting against Donald Trump, if you truly care about undermining the growth of fascism in this country, you have to look within yourself, okay? You have to look within yourself. You have to realize that the same old business as usual, Democrats are actually the harm reductionist party, is not going to move you across the finish line. Or even if it does carry the Democrats across the finish line, if the final attitude from the Democrats is reflected in the Kamala Harris campaign, and it's just more militant military, like a more lethal military and a more militant border policy, then is it even good that the Democrats won in that regard? Like, it's just not. It's a race to the bottom. Okay, I care about policies first and foremost. That's what's most consequential. Okay, that's what's most consequential for me. I don't give a shit about what the letter is next to the fucking name of the politician. I care about what they're going to fight for. Okay, are they going to fight for us, or are they going to fight for the bag? And it's clear that when Democrats are openly fighting for the bag, it causes them to take terrible positions and terrible stances that make them look like they're phony, that make them look like they're insincere. And if content creators on the liberal side of the political spectrum are also reflecting that same kind of like inability to address ongoing issues and always waiting for the mass momentum to swing in that direction, always afraid to lead people to the correct side of an argument by actively counter messaging, they're always going to lose to the Republicans, who will never stop counter messaging. Republicans never stop. They run as though they are running every single day, as though there's an election every single day. Democrats remember that there's an election every 4 years and then act surprised when they fucking lose. One problem is that in the Democratic Party, there's no penalty for failure. Chuck Schumer gets to be in leadership forever, even though the party is reaching record low popularity. It's considered more important for these people to retain their positions than for the party to win. Obviously, a party that was interested in winning would oust these fools and put in new management. If they made Bernie the Senate minority leader, they'd be a lot more popular, but they don't, because it's not about winning. It's about a small group of people clinging to power. Yep, that's it. This is why we say it's like two sides of the same coin. It's just like a lighter version, a diet version of the far right insane Republican Party.